Hey guys, continuing the rating climb, we're at 557. Our opponent's playing knight to f3. Maybe we're going to see a King's Indian attack of some kind. G3 and D3 and bishop G2. No, he just transposes into D4. All right, let's just develop our knight. Let's bring out the bishop. We'll pin the knight. Why not? Let's play E6. Keep it nice and simple. And we can go for C6 or even C5. Let's play C5 just to put some pressure on the center, and we'll put our knight probably behind that. Okay, so our opponent is defending nicely. And next up, we're going to be developing this bishop. All right, since he captured, I'll just take it, and we will castle. Okay, so the knight moves. He's trying to create a double attack here. But the issue that I am seeing is that I can capture that knight, and it actually adds another defender to my bishop. So I'll have two defenders, and I'll be protected. If I go for this line, it's a little bit tricky because the knight can take me, and then I can take a queen, but then he takes a queen, and it looks like we might just end up with a big trade. But it looks like my opponent missed this idea, and now the bishop is defended like I mentioned. So whenever you're playing a move like that, you want to be very careful with the tactics to make sure that they work. Okay, so we were in check. Probably the easiest thing to do is just drop the knight back. I'm just making sure this is going to still be defended by the knight. And so, yeah, I think just bringing the knight back is the simplest thing to do. Okay, F3. Obviously, the bishop is under attack. I think we're just going to retreat. I'm just scanning if I have any better moves. I can't take this because it's defended. I don't really have time to castle, so yeah, I think we will just bring the bishop back. Okay, A4, not really a move that concerns me. I don't think that pawn is really doing anything, so I'm going to continue with the plan, develop all the pieces, followed by castling early. That's what we have done. Okay, since I am ahead, I'm going to use this opportunity to force a trade. So I'll attack the bishop and force it to capture my knight. Whenever you're ahead material, trading is generally a good thing to do. Gets the game closer to the end. It's easier to win when you're up material. So there we go. Probably going to think about using this half-open b file with my rook, or maybe even my queen, which also puts pressure on this pawn. Looks pretty solid. Okay, I'm not really concerned about that move. It can't really go anywhere. This is very well defended with two pawns, and so I think I will just continue with what I just mentioned, lining up here, threatening to take this pawn, as well as putting pressure on the b file and connecting my rooks. Okay, so we could take here with check. And after the capture, we have check. The king's going to have to move, and then we can recapture. I think that's the best way to do it, because if I take here right away, it gives white time to defend this, right? So we'll go ahead and take, since everything is with check, and then we'll take this next. Okay, so you want to get your order correct when you're calculating these tactical things. Now we can recapture. We'd probably capture both ways, but generally speaking, less pawn islands is better. And so this is considered a pawn island. And the pawns are all connected. That's an island. If I would have captured the other way, going back here, this way, I would have 1, 2, 3 islands, as opposed to, if we go back to the game, I only have 2 islands. So less pawn islands generally is better. And because, like I said, because I'm ahead, trading is fine with me. So let's go ahead and trade. Bring the rook to the half-open file and attack this. Then where should this rook go? Probably here because it's an open file. Maybe here if I want to start pushing this pawn. So both of those could be ideas. Let's see what my opponent's going to do first. I'll probably actually reposition this bishop on this diagonal. It's not really doing a whole lot here, but this one looks very good. And then I can start thinking about actually pushing this pawn, like I mentioned. So probably I'll play, yeah, oh, well, there you go. I'll play bishop g6. I was going to play that anyway, but works out in this case as well. Okay, and I think we will actually start pushing this pawn. I could move the rook first. I'm going to just go ahead and push it because I want to see if maybe it makes sense to go to the C square instead of the D square. So we'll just kind of see what white is going to do. I could also bring the knight in behind the pawn and have a nice outpost here or maybe here. Lots of good options. I'm just going to kind of react to what white is going to do. Okay, so he goes there, and again, in the spirit of trading, you know, because I'm ahead, I think I will do that. I'm going to go ahead and do the bishop because it looks like if I take with the knight, maybe my bishop is kind of stuck there for a little bit. Maybe I could play f5 actually and just open everything up. But the other option is to just take with the bishop, and my knight is going to be very, you know, good at jumping around. It's not going to get stuck over here. So I think that's fine. Take with the bishop. And now I probably will go ahead and put the rook behind the pawn, getting ready to support it as I push it forward. I could also like play a move like this to just go pawn hunting, but I think generally speaking, it's better to activate your pieces first. Once you have all your pieces on good squares, then you can start thinking about moves like this where you go pawn hunting. Okay, let's deal with the threat on the knight. I'm going to hop in here, and it looks like this is going to be a very nice square for my knight because no pawns can attack it. I can also defend it with my pawn if I need to, and so it's kind of a nice outpost. And it also supports this pawn if I want to push forward, creates a new outpost. So you can see how the knight and the pawns can really work together. Um, and the rooks aren't really going to be able to do much. So here unleashes my rook to defend the pawn. And yeah, I'm feeling like this is a good move. Okay, this is a threat now, so I don't want to lose my pawn, so I will push it forward, kind of like I mentioned. The knight is doing a great job of supporting it. And then I think we will maybe play a5 just to solidify this knight here. I don't really have to because it's not being attacked. I could also just bring my rook over, but why not? We'll go ahead and defend it, and then we can move the rook next turn. Okay, so let's think. I have two options that I'm thinking of: bringing this rook up here to attack this and potentially double up behind this pawn, or just simply going here so that I can maybe come in here. Also, could be some merit to moving a pawn forward so there's no back rank checkmating ideas. They all look pretty good. Maybe I'll just go with this one for now to attack this guy. I think I do like this idea of doubling up here on the pawn. Okay, so the opponent does not deal with this, so I think I will go ahead and grab the free pawn. And now that I have two passed pawns, it's much easier. I can move this rook out of the way and just push this pawn down the board. So let's actually just go back, get out of the way so that we can do that. And everything looks pretty straightforward. Okay, that doesn't really change anything that I was planning on doing. So let's go with the pawn push. Okay, so he blockades me. So what do I need to do here? I have to figure out how to get rid of that rook. Couple of ways that I could do that. I could try to figure out how to get my rook to attack that, but it doesn't look easy at the moment because I can't like transport my rook there. I think the easiest thing to do is actually use my pawn, play f5, and yes, there is en passant, but then I can recapture and I have another pawn ready to go to f5 next turn. And so that's going to be hard for white to stop, so let's go ahead and play f5. And either way, whether they en passant me or not, I'm going to have three connected as pawns. Along with the extra knight, it's just too much for the rooks to stop. Just too much. Okay, so here we go. You know, I'm looking for like, are there any threats, but nothing that really concerns me too much. I'm going to push forward and get ready to threaten a queen. Okay, here we go. Going to be happening next. Okay, so when I see this, there's one thing that comes into my mind that I do want to watch out for. It's a back rank checkmate. Because if you look at my king, I can't escape the back rank because of this pawn. So, for example, if I were to play a blunder like this, and the rook comes down, I actually lose the game. So I'm going to keep that in mind of like, okay, this is how I could potentially lose the game. Now, it's covered right now, so I'm fine. And even if white's rook were here and they came down, I would still actually be fine. I could block. But I'm going to make a mental note. Don't lose the game to a back rank checkmate. Okay? So let's actually push this pawn and attack the rook. And if the rook comes over here, well, I was going to say I have to watch out, like I mentioned, but I noticed that I have the defensive move here, bringing this rook back. Going to save me. All right, so we'll push here, and now white cannot stop these pawns. One of them is guaranteed to become. Okay. All right, let's see what's the easiest way to do this. Maybe just force a trade Makes sense. And again, I'm keeping an eye on this, but I do have it covered, so I'm okay. But I've seen a lot of games that somebody was winning and they lost to something like this, right? They decided to whatever reason, maybe they decided to go and attack this or whatever, forgot about the back rank. Okay, so this looks like a free rook, and it looks like there should be checkmate very soon. I think next move actually checkmate. Oh, I can't actually go there. Okay, so it's not checkmate. You do have to be careful of a stalemate. Is it a stalemate? It's not, because I see a place that the king can move to, so I will take that. But you do want to make sure you identify a place that the king can move to, because notice all the pawns are stuck. So if the king didn't have a move, it would have been a stalemate. Okay, let's go for another game. Let's play e4, I guess. Attack it. I think I remember a comment. Somebody was asking for the Scotch. Well, I was going to play the Scotch, but they played g6. So I think probably just take the pawn. Okay. And I could retreat. I could also just defend with my pawn. I think I'll just defend. It gets more control of the center and also lets my bishop out. And so I think that's a good option. Okay, the pawn is being attacked. Let's defend it. All right, going in castles. That's a pretty good move. Let's play bishop to c4. Just lining up on this square. If the rook ever moves, we will have that. If the rook doesn't move, I'm not going to take it, right? I've talked about this before. A knight and a bishop is better than a rook and a pawn. So I'm not going to trade right now. Like right now, I'm not going to do that. That's not really a great trade for me. So I'm going to go back. Even though if you add up the points, 5 and 1 is 6 and 3 and 3 is 6, it just works out in practice. That's one exception to the point values that really doesn't quite make sense. Okay, I wonder if there's a tactic here. If I castle, I see that there's 2 pieces that can take this. I only have it defended 1 time, but at the end of that, I have this sacrifice. Remember, guys, always check if there's something with the bishop sacrifice. And after the king takes, I have a knight fork, where I'm going to be winning the rook. My knight is defended by the bishop, so I believe I can actually get away with that. So I'm going to castle and leave this kind of as bait for the tactic that I just mentioned. So always be scanning for these bishop takes f7 tactics. And here we go. I think we're going to see it right now. So we'll take the knight. And we'll take the pawn. We'll follow it up with the fork. And so we lose a bishop, but we get a rook and a pawn. That's a great trade. Very tricky tactic to see there. So just always double check those bishop takes f7 moves, right? Because you never know when these types of tactics will pop up in your games. Okay, so our knight's under attack. Let's save it. Knight here, knight here. This one looks like then my knight would kind of be stuck. Notice if I go to g3, all of these squares would then be controlled. And so with that in mind, I think I'll go to g5. It is defended, so I'm not worried about the queen. All right, there's an attack here. Let's just play c3. Keeps everything nice and solid. Gives my queen some options to come over here. All right. Let's finish developing. I think we can bring this bishop out. Go to f4. And we'll try to connect the rooks and get the rooks to the open file. Okay. Let's put the queen on maybe b3 just to attack some stuff here. Like I said, I wanted to get it out of the way of the rooks so that they both can have options to come to the open file or wherever I need them to go. Okay, knight's attacked. Where can we move to? Can't go there, can't go there, can't go there, can't go there. Don't want to go there, and so pretty straightforward. Only move is to probably go back to f3. Okay, what's the threat? Attacking my rook. I was going to move my rook anyway, and so this works out nicely. I'll move it, control of the file. Our opponent's playing pretty well, I would say, making some nice threats, with the exception of that one tactic that they missed. They've played very well. Okay. It looks at first glance like I can't take that. It's defended, right? But if you look a little bit further and always keep an eye on the queen and what are the things that it's lined up with, you'll notice that this pawn is actually pinned. That pawn actually can't take me. So because of that, that's a free piece. As soon as I say that, I notice something. There's actually an advanced move here for black. They didn't see it, but if you guys would like to pause, what's a move that black could play here, which actually might have been a problem for me? If you had a chance to look at that, I just noticed the move knight to a5 actually attacks my queen, forcing it off of that diagonal, so this would become a threat. And I think I would have to play a move like queen here or here. I would lose my rook, and even though I would get the knight, I'd also lose my knight. So that would have been a great move for black, which I overlooked. I was focused on just this, and I stopped thinking before I really calculated that. But my opponent didn't see that, and so we will continue on. And I think it's still actually available if black wants to play it. Like, they didn't see it, but that would have been a great move by my opponent. Hard move to find. Very hard move to find. But yeah, I just noticed that. Now I think we're okay, though. Okay, so he gets out of the pin. So now what? My rook is under attack. So let's think, where do we want to move the rook to? Go back here. And actually, I'm thinking here or here. I want to go to one of these two so that I can leave this square open for my other rook. So I can double up. This one has the advantage that if I want to swing over here to maybe attack the king, I can. It has the disadvantage that it's on a dark square and it might get chased around by the bishop at some point in the future. This one has the advantage, it supports this. Probably not necessary. I think weighing the pros and cons, I like this better. I'd rather give myself the option to attack. It doesn't look like that bishop's going to very easily. Yeah, and now the bishop is gone. Okay. Both of these captures make a lot of sense to me for different reasons. This one makes sense because I create the passed pawn, which I can then push forward. It's very annoying for white. This one makes sense because it keeps the rook on the open file, attacks this, gets ready to double up, and I can come down here and attack the king. I think I like that better, although both of those moves looked really great. So you can't really go wrong with either of those. Okay, let's follow through with the plan. I mean, I could take this, but I think I would rather just focus on activating my rook right away. And it looks like I'm going to be able to checkmate this king pretty soon because it has no protection from the pawns, right? The pawns have been pushed forward. Okay. So let's see. Check. Or do I want to take it now? Do I want to take this? Lots of good options. I could even go here, check, to bring the queen in that way. Go here and attack this first. I think I like this. Just bringing the queen over to give myself the opportunity to pair it up with the rook for a checkmate. So for example, if the king, let's just say, goes back, thinking of rook down here. Okay, I'm still thinking of rook down there. And we have a checkmate if the king goes back. So I think black has to play this. But then I can still trade and invade with my queen. And it's looking very, very bad for black. I mean, of course, I'm up a rook. So there's not going to be any really great moves for black when you're down that much material. Looks like our opponent may have disconnected. So I'm going to take this opportunity to go and refill my water bottle. And finally, after waiting like 6 or 7 minutes, it recognizes that they disconnected and will auto resign. Okay. Game abandoned. All right. That was fun. Play a new one. All right. Let's play e4 again. Knight f3. And I think somebody had asked for their scotch. There we go. We'll play the scotch. Now, I don't know the theory on the scotch. So I'm just going to go with basic principles. But, well, I can tell you f6 is probably not the right move. So already, every time I see f6, I'm asking myself, do I have a tactic with queen h5? So for example, takes, check. Doesn't quite work because the knight actually can block. But I'm going to keep that in the back of my mind. Maybe even try to start setting that up. So let's play bishop e5, and maybe we can actually take the knight. Then we can take here. Even if we have to sacrifice or something, we might have that follow-up tactic. Like, for example, on d6, I'm wondering, can I take, check, and then if g6, we come in here with the... Okay, we don't get a chance, but I think we might have had something there. So, all right, let's just go ahead and capture this. And get ready to castle. Still keeping an eye on this. I don't think there's anything immediately, but I'm... oh, well, there you go. Never mind. See what I mean, right? Like, that's why you don't just look at a move one time and then completely forget about it. You look at it and you kind of keep it as like, that's an idea. that I have, and maybe it'll make sense later on in the game, like right now. Check. We're going to win the bishop for free. So, and by the way, it also defends my knight, so that works out nicely. I don't lose my knight right here. And it just goes to show why you got to be really careful playing moves like f6. So you can play them, and they can be okay, but you have to understand the risks, and the risks are when you open up that diagonal. And so if you're not paying attention, that's what could happen, right? Okay, let's see where we want to move our queen to. Queen d5 looks pretty good, putting a lot of pressure on this guy. Also just dropping it back to one of these squares looks fine. The only issue here is what happens when the bishop comes out. Takes, take. No, I should be fine. What about the knight? Actually, knight e7 would be an annoying move, facing my queen away. So with that in mind, here, this is also kind of an annoying move. So notice how I'm scanning for how is black going to attack my queen. With all that thought about, I think I will actually go to c3, and there's no bishop that I have to worry about to pin me. Okay, so we'll take this. But on c3, no knights could attack me. None of black's pieces could attack me. So that's kind of important. You are going to bring your queen out early. You want to think through those things. Okay. Looks like a blunder. Do we have any better moves? Probably not. So we'll take the rook. Okay, we'll take knight. Have a follow-up with the bishop. And we can take the queen, or we can look for a checkmate as well. Do I see a checkmate? Not immediately, so I will just go ahead and take the queen. And there should be a checkmate very soon. Okay. So yeah, that was a very illustrative game of you pay attention to the weaknesses, right? As soon as I saw this, I was constantly paying attention. And sure enough, a few moves later, we had an opportunity to take advantage of it. Okay, very, very important lesson that comes up a lot in chess, right? You see a weakness. There might not be anything immediately, but probably as the game goes on, there could be an opportunity, okay? For 582, should be able to get to 600 in this video. Let's go ahead and get the center. Try to get 2 pawns out there if we can. All right, and our opponent is going to let us do that. So here we go. Bring out both of our knights. We'll just go for the sort of standard, really nice looking setup. Put our bishop out somewhere, and this one as well. Okay, I'm going to defend this pawn. It is attacked 2 times, and I'm defending it now 2 times. And we're ready to castle. All right, let's go ahead and castle. And let's just verify that's defended enough. Okay, I'm going to play queen to d7. I'm creating this battery with my queen and bishop, and I might come down here and try to trade off this bishop, which is going to leave these white squares kind of weak. Okay, but white is striking. So now I'm going to think, does opening up this make sense? And it actually looks like it might. Why? Because white has not castled. So with that in mind, I'm going to take it and try to get a rook here. Before, yes, this is perfect. And this is exactly why, if you're playing as white, you need to castle first, and then you strike at the center. You don't want to open up the center if your king is there, because now white is going to have some serious problems because of this rook check. I can already tell you they're going to have some problems. Haven't even analyzed anything, just on the principle of don't let your king get stuck in a pin like this. Okay, so how do we take advantage of this the best way? I am thinking queen to e7. Why queen to e7? Because it creates a battery on the knight, and it prevents white from castling. If white's able to castle and then bring their rook over, all of white's problems are solved. So I think the way that we stop that is queen to e7. And yes, white can still castle, but they have to be willing to give up a knight, which is obviously you know, a big price to pay to get your king safe. If I hadn't played queen e7, and I had played anything else really, let's just say rook e7, trying to double up rooks, that's too slow. White would have castled. I wouldn't have been able to take this, right? So you can see the importance of not letting them castle like that. Okay, so we could trade queens. We could take this. I think I will go ahead and trade the queens first, and then we'll take the pawn after. Okay, let's go ahead. Snag the free pawn. And then we will probably just retreat the bishop if it gets attacked. Yeah, so let's think about this. Where do we want to go? Here looks pretty nice. Could also go all the way back. Could even go sit it on this square. But I think I'll just go with this one, lining it up here and giving myself the option to trade some more pieces. Okay, my knight's under attack. Let's move it. Can I capture this? Nope, it's defended well enough, so we have to find a new place. Knight to a5, jumping into c4 looks really nice. That's what we're going to do. There we go. Knight to c4, it's a fork. It's going to force another trade. And again, because I am ahead a piece, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 minor pieces. My opponent only has 3 minor pieces. That is why I'm happy to trade. Now I don't need to trade here. That's actually just a free rook, so we'll just take the rook. All right, so looks like a free pawn. I think I'm going to take that. I'm just kind of scanning. Are there any other better moves? I don't think so. So we'll take the pawn. All right, again, looks like a free pawn. I will take it, and this is defended. I'm not losing that. All right, so when the knight moves, it unleashes the bishop. Do I care? Not really, because my knight is defending it. What's the easiest way to win a position like this when you're way ahead? It's either trade pieces or push your pawn. So I'm going to start by pushing this passed pawn. It's got the rook behind it, and so probably push this down the board relatively easily. Let's just make sure that it has defenders, which it does. That's the only risk when you push your pawns. If you don't have enough support, they can become targets. But in this case, I've got lots of pieces supporting it, at least up to this square. My knight and my bishop. At that point, I might think twice before pushing it all the way here, because then it could just become a weakness and get captured. But I think I will at least push it to here, and then we will reevaluate based on what white is going to do. Okay, so it's attacking my bishop. I think the simplest and easiest thing is to just play c6, defends the bishop, and still ready to go next move to push this. All right, continuing with the plan. Okay, so like I mentioned, if I push it here, I do have to be afraid of, let's just say the rook moves over, the knight comes back, and they just take my pawn. I don't really want to just lose a pawn like that. So I think I'm just going to leave it there for a little bit and see how I can start using some of my other pieces. So I'm thinking about knight to e4 to try to trade the bishop. It could just go back, but still that's bringing another piece towards the action, towards the center of the board, and maybe I could even migrate it over here to the queen side, and it can help assist pushing this pawn. Okay, white doesn't see the threat, and so I'll just take the bishop. And it looks like the game's going to be over pretty soon. Okay. So let's go ahead. We'll force a trade. Like I mentioned, that makes everything easier for me. Okay, that doesn't really threaten anything that concerns me, so I'll push my pawn. And, you know, now I'm not worried about it getting captured. White only has the rook and the bishop. I've already got 2 rooks defending it. And I'm ready to do something like this to force that rook out of there, get the queen, and then deliver the checkmate. I think that's exactly what I'll do. There are other things you could do, but this is just the simplest and quickest, I think. Check. Get the queen. Or take the rook. And I believe I see a checkmate. The queen's going to come to the center. Okay, they resigned instead, but the queen was going to go to e4 here, and that was going to be checkmate. All right, new 10-minute, 590. 2 more wins should put us above 600. Okay, let's defend. And should we play this again? Yeah, we'll play another 2 knights. I was thinking about playing bishop c5 just for some variety, but we'll do this one more time. Okay, so d3, I actually have a line that I like to play against this. I've studied it, and it's d5. And the point is that you're just focusing on quick development right away. um, even at the cost of gambiting this pawn. So a lot of times what happens is white will castle, bring their rook over, and attack you, and you just give it up and keep developing your pieces. Well, this is a different move. I don't know that I've seen that, but white is trying to pin my knight and then maybe take it this way. So a couple of options. One is I could simply defend it with my bishop. Another is I could counter pin white's knight with my bishop. But then I have to ask the question, what happens if white pushes and pushes and then takes my pawn? Am I really willing to do that? And I don't know that I am. The other option is I could play bishop c5. Takes, takes. The idea is setting up potentially some kind of a tactic, although I don't know that it quite works because king f1 looks to be a decent move for white. So there's a lot of ways we could approach it. Maybe the simplest is just bishop to d6, and I think that's what I'm going to do. I'll just defend my pawn like this. I like this one because it does give me the option to castle, which is kind of important. You don't want your king getting stuck in the center in these e4, e5 openings. Knight to g5, interesting move. So let's see, does it have a threat? Well, I'm not worried about that. Am I worried about this? Not really, because if I take, where's the queen going to go? f3, check. It's a fork, but I would block with the knight, and I would be fine. Check over here, I would just play g6, and I would be fine. Bishop c4 is a move, but I would play bishop e6 and be fine. So I'm not really concerned about that. So maybe I could continue castling, but then what about queen h5? Okay, that actually looks a little bit scary. I could play knight f6. Queen would go back. Do I really want to put myself in that situation? Probably not. So what's the simplest thing? I don't know. Maybe f6 attacks the knight, but then there's also queen h5. And notice I'm doing a lot of calculating in this particular position, whereas some of the other games that I played, I didn't have to think so much, right? And this is important. Depending on the type of opening that you play, you have to adapt, right? This is a very tactical position with a lot going on, even though it might not seem like it. There's lots of tricky moves that white potentially has that I need to be aware of, and there's lots of options that I have, right? I could be playing any number of different moves, and so you really want to think through these kind of critical moments. So that's what's going on here. So still haven't decided what I want to do. I don't think this is a good move, but it is kind of an interesting move that I do need to be careful and think through still. So maybe I could just play bishop f5, just develop my bishop to a good square where I could drop back to g6 and really just control these light squares if I needed to. I think I might do that. That looks like it makes a lot of sense to me. So I'm still following through with the general plan of developing my pieces, but I'm also, um, kind of reacting to what white is doing. Okay, good move. It sort of looks like a fork, but it's not really because I can just drop back and defend. So I think that's what I will do. Um, there's also, I could set a little trap. This knight, it's actually defended. It's defended tactically. So if white were to take this, I have this move check, which unleashes my queen, and I can actually win the queen. So maybe I will actually do that, set the trap. So I'm going to go back here. It looks like I'm just defending this, and I totally forgot about my knight. But actually, I didn't, and I have this follow-up. Now, some of you might be thinking, but there's knight c3, which defends the queen. But does it really defend the queen? And the answer is no, not, because it's pinned. I would still be able to take the queen. Okay, so if white wow, white avoids a very, very clever trick. So good move by my opponent. Now they are threatening to take this. Do have enough. So I think now what I will do probably is just go back. Go back to f6. And notice the bishop is defending against this, so I'm okay. And I'm probably ready to castle next move, or maybe play queen e7 and actually castle this way, depending on what white is going to do. Okay, so they just developed. Yeah, and I think now is probably a good time. Let's just go ahead and castle. I'm feeling pretty comfortable castling this way, even though white does have some pieces kind of lined up in this direction. Everything is pretty well defended, and so I'm okay with that. Okay, so they're setting up a checkmate. Defended 2 times, so I'm not really concerned. White would have to somehow manage to get rid of both of these for that to be a threat. So I think what I'm going to do is start looking at what can I attack. Knight to d4 threatens a fork. Maybe it's not the greatest threat, but it is a threat. What else do I have? Do I want to open up the center because White's king is still there? So move like e4 comes to mind, but White has a lot of pieces. I think they could just capture. I don't really have a good follow-up. So with all that, I can also play queen d7 actually and offer a queen trade, which might maybe makes sense if I'm worried about my king, which I'm not necessarily worried, but maybe a queen trade does make sense. So there's this move, this move. They both look fine. I will actually go with the queen move. I think connecting my rooks makes a lot of sense, and I'm happy with the queen trade and going into like a middle game, end game type of. But I think knight d4 would have also been a fine move. All right, so our opponent doesn't take. We can take here. The knight's probably going to go back. Or we can chase the knight away first and then potentially mess up the pawn structure, although white could at that point trade queens. So yeah, I'll just go ahead and trade. I think it's fine. And, well, they take with the pawn. Okay, so that's, I like to see that. Look at the pawn structure. Those are going to be weak targets as the game goes on. Only thing that maybe I have to be concerned about is the rook here, but now that queens are off the board, I'm not super concerned about getting attacked. So I think I will now play that move that I talked about earlier, bring the knight to the center. Threatens the fork. Pretty easy threat to deal with, but at least it centralizes my knight. Okay, and if the capture happens, that's fine. We now have the bishop pair, which generally speaking is a slight advantage over the knights. All right. So, if I don't take it and white takes me, I'm going to have to mess up my pawn structure. I don't love that. I don't really have a place that I would want to move it to. I guess I could go here, but that's kind of on the edge of the board. I think I will just take it. And then there's going to be an attack. We will deal with that with a tempo on the bishop. So we stop the threat. We also attack the bishop. And since the king is still in the center, I think rook to e8 with a check looks to be the natural follow-up move. Overall, white has played pretty well, I will say. Yeah, so I think we'll go ahead and in bishop to the king. And if white castles, yeah, we actually have a tactic. There's a fork. So you got to be careful when you have pieces that are undefended because of things like this can happen. Okay, so we'll take the knight. Now we're up a piece. All kinds of trades make the game easier for us. And so with that in mind, I'll go ahead and trade the bishop. And let's actually bring the rook up here. You have to watch out for a fork, but I'll be able to blockade with my bishop if white tries to go for that. What I'm trying to do is just blockade the pawn and double up my rooks here. Okay, this is under attack, but it is defended. I'll continue with my plan of piling up on that pawn. Okay, defense. So I think what I'm going to do is put my bishop here, attacks this pawn, but also gets out of the way from the rook. Why? Because I want to play f5 and undermine this pawn. But if I would have played it before, the rook would have just taken my bishop. Okay, so I wanted to save the bishop, also created a threat at the same time. And now we can play f5, and you see the power of these double rooks. This pawn is pinned. White doesn't have the option of capturing me, or they simply get checkmated and lose a rook in the process. Okay, so they have to let me take this, and I've essentially won that pawn. Or we'll take this one first, and then we'll take this one since it's not really going anywhere. Okay, that's a blunder because the rook is not defended enough. Okay, we'll go check. Rook on the second rank gives me lots of options to take these pawns. And then the simplest thing is going to be to just get a queen. Let's go here, and we'll push this pawn all the way. And there's no stalemate. White still has, lots of pieces that they can move, so I'm not worried about that. And now that we have the queen, we can look for a checkmate. Let's unleash the rook here. It looks like we can just do a simple ladder checkmate. That'll be the fastest and the easiest. All right, good game to our opponent. They played pretty well that game, I have to say. All right, let's play a new 10-minute. And this will put us over 600, and we'll probably just end this video here. Okay, boarded game. All right, let's play something different. We'll play the Scandinavian. And if they take, I will play this knight move. And the idea is we would like to recapture with the knight instead of queen. Because when you recapture with the queen, you do lose some time when the knight attacks you. That's one of the drawbacks to the Scandinavian, you might say. And if you can recapture with the knight, you don't really have that problem. The other point is that sometimes we play a quick bishop to g4. And the point is that even though white can play f3 and chase you away, if they do play f3, they create some weaknesses, which we've already seen earlier in this video, right? When that pawn gets pushed forward. So we're almost kind of baiting those weaknesses. Okay, so our opponent plays this move. And what I'm going to do is play what's called the Icelandic Gambit. And you give up this pawn. You lose a pawn essentially right away to get quick development. So if white accepts this, we're going to have two pieces developed. White is going to have no pieces developed, okay? And essentially, we just try to develop very quickly. The knight comes out, the bishop comes out, and we try to use our pieces to attack before white has a chance to finish their development, okay? So let's, in that spirit, play knight c6. We have options with this bishop. Sometimes b4 is good, sometimes c5 is good. Let's see what white's going to do, and then we'll try to decide. Okay, they play knight to f3. I will go here. I don't actually remember which one is better in this particular case. I'm going to go with this and probably play queen to e7 to line up on the king. Yes. So I'm creating a threat here of moving this bishop with check. So this is a very serious threat that white has to watch out for. They take here. I would probably take with the knight. I guess I could also take with the queen. Okay, so they didn't see the threat here. And now I have the option to move that bishop with the check, like I mentioned. And actually, I'm looking at this a little bit more carefully. I think even a better move than taking here is actually bishop g4, because the knight, let's just say bishop blocks, I'd be able to take it because that guy's going to be pinned. And if the queen moves there, I would also be able to take it, and the queen would also be pinned. So yeah, this looks like a killer move. Bishop e3 is not an option because it's pinned. Yeah, white really has no good moves. And so you can see how dangerous this opening is, especially at the lower levels. Now, it's not a fair fight, obviously, right? But even if you're a lower rated player and you don't see all of these tactics, it's good practice if you want to work on your tactics. So maybe check out the Icelandic Gambit. It's a fun opening, and you can just see how dangerous it is if white is not careful. White's already about to get checkmated or lose a bunch of material. And if they hadn't blundered something here, what I was planning on doing was castle and queenside so that this rook would be involved, then bringing this rook over, and we were going to have both rooks lined up, all of our pieces really attacking, and you can see how it's so tough to play. We'll take here. You see the pin that I'm talking about, so the queen can't take us. And after this, probably take with the king. I could take with the bishop or the king. I can't take with the knight because I would lose this guy, or I don't want to lose that guy. So either the king or the bishop. I think we'll just take with the king. We could still bring a rook over and keep attacking. Let's go ahead and do that. Threatening to just move my king. Create the check. Okay, so kind of in a more advanced tactic here, but instead of just going for the obvious trade, I can move my king and unleash the rook like I just mentioned, and it's going to be pinning at bishop. So here we go. Bishop can't take me. It's pinned. And you again, we see the dangers of when your king is stuck in the center and a rook gets lined up, it's never going to be good, right? And that's goes back to the very beginning when we gambited these pawns, we got the lead in development. That's why white was never really able to catch up, right? Okay, so I'm going to take this for sure. The question is which way. I think the rook is fine. Also gives me the option to bring this rook over. And either way, it's not looking good for white, wherever the king. So we have the option to just win a piece. I also can bring the knight in and go for checkmate. Yeah, it's a difficult checkmate to stop. So I think I will do that. Yes, white can capture here with check, but I'm able to trade. They don't have time to take me back because they're in a mating net. So remember, when your opponent's king can't move, like right here, it's stuck. All you have to do is put it in check, and it's checkmate. So that's all I'm doing. It's a very simple threat. Just checkmate. Just the king can't move, attack it. And you want to figure out, okay, how can I best attack it where it's hard to stop? And this is one of those moves. So there you go. And you can see the power of the Icelandic Gambit against an opponent who's unprepared, right? All right, guys, 606, we did it. And we will pick up here next time. Thank you guys for watching. Stay sharp, play smart, and take care.